A New York City landlord posts giant signs calling out non-paying tenants. So let's actually go check this out, this little video out. New York is not a real place, rent is too high. Okay, so this person says, my tenants on the first floor are not paying rent. So in a sign of the times, a fed-up Queens landlord posted two giant banners calling out his allegedly deadbeat tenants for owing him $17,000 in back rent. Dear Lord, that is a lot of money to be behind. Jesus, that is crazy. That is like a lot of money behind. Okay. So, landlords Calvin and John Thompson posted the bold banners, which can be seen from the Belt Parkway, in the hopes of shaming their tenants into paying up. The Thompsons began the process of trying to evict Mary and Eugene Lamar and their daughter, Kathia, in Queens Housing Court last month. And the Lamar's lawyer, Andres Becker, said the sign is a form of harassment and will only hurt the Thompsons' case. Wow, that is pretty nuts. Like, that is pretty nuts. Let's go into it. Okay, so it was also featured in a TikTok video that got more than 14,000 likes and supportive comments like, not paying your bills is ghetto. The Thompsons, who are married, have owned the two family home since 1989. Blah, 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 blah. But with nearly 200,000 eviction cases pending in the city after pandemic protections and the state's eviction moratorium created a historic backlog, the landlords see humiliation as the next best tactic. The signs are very embarrassing and shameful for them, said the Thompson son, Kevin Jr. That's the only voice we have at this stage, freedom of speech. So tenant Kathia Lamore claims she offered to pay $1,800 in rent to landlords Kevin and John Thomas. Like, this is the thing, right? Like, if you're $17,000 behind, $1,800 does nothing. Like, it does nothing. So the sign seems to be working. Kathy Lamar tried to cut one sign down, Kevin Jr. claims. When she calls Uber, she won't do it in front of the house anymore, he said. She runs to the end of the block so they don't see them. Now, this is kind of weird too, right? Because, like, you have enough money to be using Uber, but you don't have enough money to contribute to your rent. That seems kind of weird. It's uncomfortable that we have to hang these up, but we're $20,000 uncomfortable, so I think a sign is very minor. Let's see. So problems begin in July when the Thompsons raised the rent on the Lamar's three-bedroom pad from $1,800 a month to $1,900 a month, the first rent hike in 9 years, according to Calvin Jr. The Lamars didn't want to pay the 5% increase. Kathy, who works for the City Department of Social Services and makes $46,731, according to GovernmentSalaries.com, told the Post. She tried to drop off $1,800 in rent instead of the new amount, but the Thompsons refused to take it, so she stopped paying altogether. Well, here's the thing, right? They haven't raised the rent in 9 years. They raised it by $100. They probably gave the individual warning that, like, hey, we are going to be raising the rent to $1,900. So you can't just keep paying what you were paying before if they basically told you they're going to raise the rent. So it's like all of a sudden we're bad tenants, said Kathy, who has been on unpaid medical leave from her job since the summer. They were bamboozling me into an increase. They went ballistic on me because I wouldn't give it to them. Well, this is the thing. Like, if they really didn't raise their rent for 9 years, if that's true, and they only raised it by $100 a month after 9 years, that's pretty crazy. They didn't necessarily bamboozle you. They told you that they're going to raise the rent. So I don't think a $100 increase for almost a decade of living is unreasonable, Kevin Jr. said. There are plenty of landlords in our situation because of COVID. A lot of eviction cases are backlogged. She knows this and is going to ride this out. The state's eviction moratorium, which ended in January, gave wide latitude to renters suffering hardship from the pandemic, but left many landlords in a lurch. The moratorium also allowed renters to put the brakes on an eviction case against them by claiming financial hardship without having to prove it. The Lamores did not file any COVID hardship forms. Both families live in the same building, and the only thing separating them is floorboards. The Lamore's lawyer, Andrea Spiker, said the sign is a form of harassment and only hurt the Thompsons' case. And this is the thing, right? Like, this is the crazy thing. Like, you basically have neighbors that are also your landlords where they allowed you to live in an area paying the exact same amount of rent for 9 years. Okay? Typically, rent gets increased every single year for the majority of places. And for them to finally do that after 9 years, probably because they are also facing more hardship from COVID to 1900 a month, which isn't that dramatic of an increase after 9 years of not raising it, is kind of crazy when you really think about it. And to just decide not to pay for your rent is also pretty nuts as well. Because you also got to think about it too. She was using Uber. She keeps using Uber, right? They use Uber. That is a very expensive way of traveling, which would literally be the like missing cost of that increase in rent. So it's pretty crazy when you really think about it. It's like this is why you want to get into a position where one, you pick your tenants correctly. Two, potentially maybe not even get involved in being a landlord to begin with. And three, have enough money stored away for like an emergency fund, whether you're the renter or the landlord, to be able to weather whatever storm might come up. And to be frank, in like New York, right? Her making like $46,731 isn't really that much. Now, I believe she is married, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty certain she's actually married. Yeah, because, yeah. I believe they are married. So it really comes down to a situation where, like, okay, they could afford that increase in rent. They're just deciding not to pay their bills. And, like, it's pretty crazy, right? It's like, why are you just deciding not to pay your bills? Why do you think that that is okay to just not pay your bills? Like, that seems really off putting and really not a good thing. If you want to learn how to get out of debt, go to 40inbox.com.